Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriella Perez. I am the committee leader of the DEI committee. And this webinar that we're going to present will provide a lot of opportunities for discussion, but it's really to talk about the experiences of people who stutter with not only law enforcement individuals, but also TSA agents, people who just speak in authoritative manner, bosses, teachers. And so we really have a wonderful presentation that Julie has really helped put together. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Julie Marshall, and I work at the University of Memphis, and I'm a clinical educator in stuttering disorders and other types of things. And I've been in this field since sometime in the late 80s, so hopefully I'll be able to contribute.
And then we also have Ashley, who also has done a great job in putting together the presentation.
Hi everyone. I'm 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 Ashley Gibbons. I am also a member on the DEI committee, and I'm really excited to talk with you all today about authority figures and stuttering. My 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 father is a retired Michigan state trooper, and my mom is a attorney. So there's lots of authority figures in my life.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, share. And then play from the start. Can everyone see? Or Ashley, Julie? Is it good? Okay, so we just did the first slide. So as I sort of briefly said, we are going to start with sort of some like just information, like facts. So that will be more just informative, but then we're going to talk about, what we would want to tell authority figures. We're going to talk about our own experiences, own experiences getting pulled over or, maybe at a bar, talking to a bartender. And then we're going to strategize ways that we could improve these interactions. At the annual NSA conference, we are going to do an extended version of this workshop. So we really want to get feedback and hear what people want to see. And it also, our hope is to talk one-on-one with police officers or, law enforcement that do sort of disability awareness training to see, if there is a way for us to do a project or have an impact in that area. So that's what we're, in for today. And I'm going to turn it over to Julie, who is going to start us off.
So here's a quote from somebody who obviously had an interaction with law enforcement, and they weren't terribly bothered by it. Their alcohol check was negative, and they said they understood why. Possibly they thought they weren't sober. That's not everyone's experience, of course, and we'll talk about experiences more later. So I was just curious to see what kind of training do law enforcement officers and authority figures get about any kind of communication differences or disorders. And there's not a whole lot of information. I found a lot of companies that do the training for law enforcement externally. And then a lot of the training that's done internally, they're not really that willing to talk about. So probably for liability or for whatever reasons. But I think all officers, law enforcement is trained in the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. And there's a lot of focus on autism, mental health, crisis intervention, and some other issues as well. And then as far as how other agencies are trained, there's just that probably just varies as much as it does with law enforcement. I do know some people have told me that they actually get treated like more kindly and with more patience once the person sees them stutter. Familiarity, somebody who's already familiar with stuttering is more likely to have more patience. And there's a lot of factors into what makes those interactions pleasant or unpleasant. So what training is available? The Stuttering Foundation has like I think it's a 1-page thing about what it's like, some things to consider if you are stopped. But that's, somebody would have to go look for that. That's not something that, is just distributed nationwide. So it's not something that police would get on a regular basis. And then the DOJ, I didn't know this, I think Gabby found this, that there was a statement on the DOJ website back in like 2013, but it's not there anymore. Which, that's something that might be good to get back up there. So the things that I found that law enforcement are routinely trained on, autism, as I already mentioned, ADD, challenging behavior, learning disability or dyslexia, that would relate to things like giving a testimony, hearing your rights, things like that could be difficult for people with those types of issues. And then mental health. So you can see the numbers are pretty high across the board for those 5 things. And then some of the commercially available training sites that I found, most of them did not mention stuttering. There's an article on the speech, language, and communication needs of young offenders. I think that might be where that chart came from that was on the previous slide. And then the police brutality talks about things like mobility, sight, hearing, syndromes, again, autism, mental illness, intellectual developmental disorders also showed up a lot, traumatic brain injury, and things like dementia. So that one was fairly comprehensive, but really nothing about communication. And then policetraining.net. So most of the searches that I did, either on speech language, communication disorders, or stuttering in particular, did not yield any specific training on those issues. And then if just the plain old police officer training about stuttering, it yielded a lot of discussion and videos about being a police officer who stutters, which I thought was interesting. And I think they can be fine, very effective. So the one site that I did find, disabilityawareness-training.com, they do specifically mention stuttering in the 911 training. And then there's a more extensive section on speech disabilities, and their DAT is now part of New York State Police Academy, sorry. And this gentleman wants to talk to me further. He's been really busy traveling, but hopefully I can get more information. We're going to do a Zoom meeting, and hopefully I can get more information on exactly what all they talk about, because it was really refreshing to see one that actually said, yes, we include that in our training. So that was pretty neat. So here's some discussion topics. Should it be up to us, the person who stutters, to educate? That's been an issue with a lot of marginalized populations. You know, are they supposed to be the ones who are supposed to do all the educating? What types of things should be included? And maybe should there be a campaign at a national level? So anyone have some insights into any of these questions? And you can, when you want to ask a question, you can physically raise your hand, though we may not be able to see it with the number of people that are in here, or put it in the chat, or there's a way to raise your hand. Will you explain that? It's under the More button, I think.
Arnetta, I think, is raising her hand. So.
Oh, okay. Hi, Arnetta. We can't hear you yet.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm Arnetta Jones. And just before you put up this last slide, you know, and there was kind of a question as to, or I had a question as to why stuttering wasn't really included in a lot of training, although there is a lot of focus on disabilities as far as autism, mental health, and those kind of things. Because I think there's a lot of information and instances with the police and mental illness and that type of thing. I'm not aware of anyone really having a lot of difficulty in stuttering with contact with people like the police. But I did see that 911 training. I think that was really important. On either side of the phone. I mean, the person receiving the call and the person making the call. But yeah. I think though at this point, I just don't believe there's been a lot of information put out there about stuttering when I see some of these suggestions on the screen now. And but I feel over, I don't know, the last 10, 20 years, as stuttering has become more prominent. I mean, just on behalf of the Stuttering Foundation, the NSA, with the efforts that they have made, I think more and more stuttering is getting out there. I mean, just from my perception. So yeah, I do think there should be a national campaign, or relying on various advocacy groups to really put stuttering out there and get some momentum going.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Dana has a question.
Okay.
Yes. Hello. My name is Dana Bonanna. I acquired this stutter of about 3 years ago, and what I've found is from the event that I experienced, that I acquired this, it was very difficult to get information and kind of assistance, no matter where I looked. It was a lot of hurdles to jump through. It's gotten better. But one of the things I think somewhere along the way was I hate to misstate it, but a stuttering bill of rights of some sort. And in it was the responsibility to educate the people on the stuttering. And the thing that I find funny is stuttering kind of gets pushed to the shoulder of the road, so to speak, a little bit, because even with the automated attendants for like the doctors and such, I have a heck of a time and cannot talk to them. Now I forgot where my question was going. I'll stop there.
If you think of it, jump back in.
I think Bob was next and then Vince.
Okay. Good evening.
Hi.
In the past, I would take my vacations in Canada. I would take a trip around Great Lakes, particularly a route around particularly a trip around Lake Superior, and crossing the Canadian border guys. They looked at me about my stuttering, but that's about it. But then coming back into the United States, and so that this was back in the 70s, before the world had gone crazy. Well, we can talk about that some other time, but going through the border, crossing back into the States, every single time I came back, I was told, go pull in, go pull into the examination space. And they tore my car apart. Everything was pulled out of my car, and I tend to overpack, and especially on a camping trip, I pack everything that I might need for, let's say, 6 months, and just anything that might happen. I might get an invitation to I might get an invitation to the Emmys or something, so that I needed a formal suit, but they tore apart my car, and then after they're done and say, okay, you can go now, I had to try to put it all back together, and of course it didn't ever fit quite as well, because I'm a meticulous packer, but anyway, I believe that at that time they must have been trained that if a person seems nervous, you check their car. Well, of well, of course, because I was stuttering, I was obvious, I was obvious, I was I was I was obviously nervous. Um, um, in their sight. So damn annoying, and and trying to talk, out of those guys. They see tens of thousands of folks per day. They don't want to hear it. They are going to do their job. So trying to educate them, oh, that's a farce. They uh or those guys aren't in any mood to learn or to even listen. Um, um, uh, and uh, uh, and so I was just so annoyed because it happens every single time. That's all.
Oh, thank you. The Vince?
Yes. A quick story I would like to share. First, I'm Vince Valder. Um, I was managing editor of the Knoxville News Sentinel about 25 years ago, and the newspaper received a letter threatening public officials. So um, uh, a trial was called, and they came to me and said, "You need to read the letter into evidence in federal court," and it had something to do with chain of evidence and everything. It's a legal term. But I started thinking about that. I was going to have to go to federal court, and I had been inside the courtroom, and it's very staid, very severe. So I could feel the tension start to build. And I started wondering, what I should do. So I talked with the newspaper's attorney, and I asked him, could I go to the judge and explain to the judge that I am a person who stuttered, and if I stutter while I'm in the witness stand, it's not because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not because I'm nervous. It's because I stutter. And so our lawyer told me that a witness can't talk to a judge about a certain case, but he said what he would do is that he would stipulate in court, if I wanted him to, that I was a person who stuttered, and just so you know, just so the judge would know, just so the court would know. And I said, well, that's a good idea. Let's try that. So he did, and when he stipulated that, I kind of felt the tension, the pressure really come down. I could stutter without harming the case. So anyway, I think that worked out very well. As it turned out, I read the letter into evidence without any trouble. And then during cross-examination, I stuttered a little bit, but it seemed to be okay. So I guess the point of the story is, uh, if you're in a tense situation, the thing to do is to stop and just come clean and say, you know, I'm not nervous. This is the way I talk because I am a person who stutters. So that's my story. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I want to be a lawyer someday. So I'm like, when you were like going into the
I don't
court.
want to be a lawyer.
I've actually been to court with two of my adults who stutter that I work with for that very reason.
Mhm.
Just attest to them. They're not. One woman had really, really long periods of blocks, and so it would sound like she was sitting there like trying to make up her story of what she was going to say, but she was actually blocking.
Right.
And then one woman, when she went to court the first time, they were accusing her of lying. So I went with her the second time. But yeah, that's a pretty intense situation, which we didn't really mention on our slides.
For next time. Bill.
Any
Hello,
other
how are you?
comments on this?
So years ago, I worked as an Oakland County in Michigan paramedic, and I'm a stutterer, but there was I had a lot of opposition with the fellow workers and, the hospital personnel, and they finally got used to it. But in the 80s, there were no programs at all, and then as a paramedic running on the scene, you're supposed to be able to just talk perfectly and with authority. But I got through it, and if this information was out during then, it would have lowered the pressure greatly. So that's what I went to. So that was when I was very young, working as a paramedic. And now I own a video production company, and part of what I do is our depositions. And so I've done thousands of them where people, we would actually hold court, and then people would begin to speak, and a lot of them were very tense, and then I would try and calm them down. But in a court issue, anything at all with reading any documents or so, the best person to talk with would be the bailiff. And then the bailiff can actually transmit that to the court, and the bailiff may be a court clerk. And so they would actually talk to the judge and then say, can you give me this information, and those kinds of things. So, but when people know, boy, the pressure just kind of drops, and then you can just really be able to communicate much easier. So, but that's part of my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like if they care enough to be educated, that it can really, really make a difference.
Okay, I think I'm gonna move on to the next. Oh, Vince, if you want to share anything.
Yes. I'm curious if anybody uses humor to kind of lower the tension. Um, I found I started doing some public speaking in my 40s, and I would start off a lot of speeches saying, "I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is my speech is only 10 minutes long. The bad news is we may be here all afternoon." But then I would say I'm a person who stutters, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Sometimes there would be some laughter and it would lower the tension in the room. So I'm curious if anybody has ever used humor to kind of get rid of tension. I just throw that out there as a question to the group.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, I have. I was employed as a credit union examiner, and that means I traveled around my state and occasionally to other states, and our team would examine the institution's operations, and at the end, the credit union the credit union would bring in, let's say, all of their all of their board, high-powered folks. You know, they are the CEOs and all that stuff, and then of course the highest staff at the credit union. And my standard speech is, "Hi, my name is Bob, and as you and for those of you who haven't dealt with me before, you are soon going to hear that I stutter." And and I am very comfortable speaking, and I'm going to ask you to just sit comfortably, relaxed. It isn't going to take as long as it might feel, and and don't try to help me out. Don't finish my sentences or guess the words I'm trying to say. I've stuttered for a very long time, and I'm very good at it. I don't need any help. And
Right.
then boom, 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 and I always got a good response on that, and and the humor applied to every interaction that I had in that job. It breaks the ice, it calms everything down, gets people relaxed. It should be pretty close to professional, although I tried to create a kind of an offbeat uh, um, uh, an offbeat irreverent character. My boss was my boss was my boss was my boss was the federal government, so that they liked to play things a lot more formally. Uh, uh, but I showed them, um, but I showed them that I could play around, be playful, and still be professional. And so, yes, use it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I think Ashley just put in the chat. We have a lot more discussion questions, so you'll have plenty of time to share. So we are going to move, keep going. And this part that we're going to get into is much more discussion oriented anyway. And we're going to talk first about just general experiences of people who stutter with law enforcement. And then I saw someone in the chat put something about like a sticky note. The NSA just released a disclosure card. So we're going to talk about that. But these are some experiences that we found on Reddit that people had, and I think that they're really they're interesting to read, because I guess I didn't think that people would be posting on Reddit about that when Julie and I were looking. So I thought that was interesting, and then I actually I realized that I actually do have like a similar experience where I feel like generally my interactions with as someone who stutters, they're not bad. I think just it's the typical, like I've never felt unsafe, for example, like because of my stutter. But when I did, this was just a few months ago, I did international travel and I came back, and the agent was asking me where I was and like what I was doing, and I answered all the questions. It was like, very, very normal, and I was stuttering a lot. And then everyone else, I was with friends, everyone else that I was with continued on, but they detained me. And I remember he said, this person just has to ask you more questions. And I was so confused because I was like, maybe this is just something that they do. And they detained me, and then someone else came to question me, and they were asking me the same questions over and over again, like very aggressively. And so, of course, I was stuttering more and more because when you're getting that energy, and they kept asking me like who I worked for, if I was giving them the right answer, who my boss was. And I don't know if it was because of my stutter, but they definitely seemed suspicious. And so I do think that it probably contributed um, to that experience. But that's really been my only experience with law enforcement or feeling unsafe, which I think is very lucky. But it seems like a lot of people have been pulled over, and people have thought that maybe they were intoxicated, or they were on something. I think you can see in all of these answers that's very common. um and yeah, the judge, this was like what we were talking about. I was in traffic court and the judge asked if I forgot why I was there. Yes. So along that vein, has anyone had any experiences like that? And how do you feel about advertising? Because I think for me, advertising was like the last thing in my mind. Like I didn't even think about that. I was just too nervous, and wanted to get out of the situation, um, that I did not even think about advertising. So I guess I'm wondering what people's thoughts are if they've had this kind of experience, and how they would want to advertise. Bob.
Hi. I've had that experience. It was a friend's birthday, and he wanted to go out and just hit the bars. So I picked him up, and it's about 6 p.m. and he is drunk as a skunk at the time. And I thought, do you want to go out? Seriously? Okay. Um, and uh, and and so I was I was the designated driver, and I started driving, and I had this split key ring where I had the car key on the one end and the house key on 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 the other end, and that came apart, so that I was driving and residentially, so I was trying to use two hands to put that together, driving quite slow and steering with my knees, and I bumped and I bumped the curb. Okay, that's fine. And of course, a cop was behind us, and he pulled me over. Um, he followed me. He followed me for a block to see if I got any worse, uh, and he finally pulled me over. Um, um, uh, 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 and so he asked, he asked, he has to see my, oh, he has to see my, oh, he has to see my license and such, and he asked, have you been drinking? And I told him no, and he said, okay, I want you to get into the back of my car here. Okay, this is going to be a pain. So I went, um, um, and we talked probably 20 minutes or uh, 20, 20, 20 minutes, 20 minutes or so. And I think I've got everything straightened out. I think he believes me now. And my drunk friend staggers back to the police car, and he knocks on the window, and the cop rolls it down, says, oh, I've been going right here and real drunk as a skunk. And so that he just confirmed to the cop that 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 there was alcohol in play here. Um, um, and I was so frustrated, I spoke really sternly to to uh, to my friend, shut up, go back to the car and sit down. I'm speaking to the officer here. And he took that and he went, um uh and I actually forget if at any point I announced that I stutter. I don't think I did, uh because that was back before my enlightened days. And um and after we got out of that situation, my friend turns to me and he says, "Oh, I think I helped out there, didn't I?" So, oh my God, no, Donnie, no.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a lot of people in the chat have had similar experiences. I think that we're gonna move on. So Ashley, you're up next. Ashley,
Beautiful. Can
okay.
you go to the next slide?
Yes.
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. If you weren't here earlier, And we're gonna be talking about the role of other id identities and how that can play in 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 into to how, how biases against authority figures. So this uh, her body of text here is talking about the distrust of minority communities that we already know about, that is innate in 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 talking about authority figures, especially the police and our legal and judicial systems. The the um the 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 chart on the side is also explaining the concept of intersectionality, how being a person who stutters, say, or your race or your socio economic class, your a, a disability status, your gender, your a nationality, how those things can play into what people assume about you, and what impact that can have on on you. Because really, I think about it, at the end of the day, this uh, uh, authority and society perceptions are a little bit one and the same. You have an authority figure that probably interacts with so many people. There's hard lines to draw between uh his stereotypes, which we will talk about in our next slide, and the case of what it actually is. So I have a body of text over here that is talking about that very thing. We all have different identities, and we can see and relate to 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 how one person may not be treated the same as another person in that same situation, based on a number of factors. So these are fictional examples, obviously, that have come up with, but can definitely happen in the world that we live in to 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 to, to today. Um, one one example I'll read, since you all can definitely read for yourselves. A a a a Latino man with a stutter is assumed to not be a native English uh, uh, speaker. We can see how that situation wouldn't necessarily happen to someone of a different complexion, who is they people would assume is from, the United States, assumed to be a native English speaker, which could be the same for the Latina man. They have no idea of his upbringing, his his status in that right, but can still be judged in those ways, when those standards are not always the same for 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 everybody. I think we can move to the next slide. Another, you guys were, we were talking about air, air, airports and border crossings. There's the story of this woman, Kyla Simmons, which I feel like is kind of at the heart of the intersectionality discussion. Summed up, she was coming back, I believe, from Costa Rica and was detained at the Atlanta air, airport because she was a person who stuttered. And she also decided to disclose her stutter to 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 the TSA and her customs agents that were detaining her, and she actually wasn't believed that she had a stutter at all. They told her that she was lying. So we can can browse some of these questions. I kind of came up with these as obviously this is a systemic problem that no one person can fix. There's not an immediate snap your finger type of, oh, let's just tell this one person, let's just explain it to this one person type of up to solve all of it. So I chose to word it as, how can we disrupt the way the world sees and treats people who 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 stutter, and also in situations like these when we are brave enough to advertise, because there was a time I definitely wouldn't have done that at all, and it's not believed by authority figures. As one person, that's all you can do is advertise. So as a community, how can we handle that? How can we see that? If anyone has any thoughts,
Could I make a quick comment, please?
you most definitely can, Vince.
You know, we have used the term, should we advertise our stutter? I think we need to think about that word. I don't think we advertise our stutter. I think we share with whom we're talking to that we are a person who stutters. I think if you advertise, it kind of means you're proud of it. You know, I'm not proud of my stutter. It's just a part of what I am, and I think the word advertise it is not quite fair. I just mentioned that. I know it's very descriptive, but I think there's a problem with that word. I don't know if anybody else feels like that or not.
I understand where you're coming from. I use that word because like you said, like I've heard other people use it.
Right, right.
But there's also, what are your
It's
thoughts?
yeah,
I'm gonna ask, what are your thoughts on the word a, a disclosure?
yeah,
Yeah, that works.
yes,
Okay, cool. I was
yes.
gonna say, because
Or or
advertising is like
or it's kind of like I'm going to share with you
Mhm.
that I am a person who stutters. Uh, I think it's more of a sharing, maybe.
Okay, valid.
Yeah, I think that I like the word disclose. I guess the advertise, I always learned maybe when I was younger, because I think they were trying to make me proud to advertise and, take away like the stigma. But I think maybe now when we're adults, um, it's not necessarily advertising, it's sharing, being vulnerable, disclosing. Bill.
I think that we really need to educate, especially the officers, especially the hospital personnel, being a paramedic, and when you approach people, you have to take a look at what's actually happening. But I think with a little bit of education, some, I don't want to call it a disability, it's who we are. And we just need to say, hey, this is what is going on. This is who I am. And then after that, they will remember that and just help in the future of people who do stutter.
Yeah, yeah, Bill, I agree with what you're saying. With instances like this, the only her total solution is education and advocacy. I think it comes at a hard point where like for me personally, I wasn't always okay with educating people and advocating about something that I didn't like about myself. And I feel like that's 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 something that I'm definitely able to to do now. My stutter is part of who I am. I don't see it as anything in between. It's not one thing or the other. It's just all me and all of us. And and that's really kind of the heart of this argument of 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 you're taking it in an authority figure who is supposed to assess things very quickly, very off the rip, assess things, and has the power to make a decision over that, in that moment, and how we see people and how we we um we 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 be- we believe them and take it at face value, or we don't, like in this specific scenario as well. I think we can go to the next slide. Thank you all for sharing, by the way. And here we have some other types of authority figures. Everything from security guards to principals to 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 the people on the phone at your bank, and your everyday uh judges, someone who has some sort of power over you that can make decisions for you, that you would want them to understand the entirety of what's going on. Um, um, does anyone else have any other authority figures that they don't see on this list? Uh, uh, uh Arnetta?
Okay. I'm not sure if I would consider the the people who I'm going to mention as an authority figure, but I can, specifically think, and I don't have any contact with this person now, but some time ago I did have a little bit of contact, but it was something about them that I was so disfluent. I couldn't, the fear of even having any conversation with them was just generated this tremendous stu- stu- stuttering. Also, my in laws, I really did not have any real relationship with them because I stuttered so bad in any conversation. And I found myself doing a lot of word avoidance. I mean, I just couldn't have a clear conversation with them, both of them. I just couldn't do it. And so, I mean, heaven forbid I would try to call them on the telephone or anything. It's just, and I look back on that and I'm disappointed that because I see other people having a good relationship with their in laws, but that wasn't the case. So,
Yeah.
Well, we could add family members. That's a really good point too. I know another person who has um, in-laws who believe that, if she tried hard enough, she could just stop stuttering. And so we can add that topic on to the presentation in July. A good point.
Most definitely. Okay. Dana.
I was thinking that, pardon me, authority figures could even be mortgage companies or financial investment to type of banking people who have an ability to make decisions on your behalf. So something to that effect.
Most definitely. And uh, uh, Lindsay.
Yeah, I feel like Uber drivers would also be something um to look into because I'm I I'm blind and I stutter. So I'm always having to always having um I'm always having to rely on someone, if that's Uber or Lyft or public transportation, I have to always rely on them to drive me somewhere. So I feel like in cases when I have some Uber driver that has a language barrier, and then my communication barrier, like it's hard to like navigate that. And if there was something in the Uber app that could like let them know, that you stutter or have some kind of communication issue, like it it would let them know to kind of like look out for that and know what to expect on a ride, so
Yeah.
and that's something that's not it's not there, and it's hard for me to like navigate that sometimes, so
Yeah.
It's a really great idea, like something you could put in your profile.
yeah.
I was gonna say, the other week I took a Lyft and it
Mhm.
told me that my driver had a hearing impairment.
Uh-huh.
And then it gave me like sign language for like hello and
Okay.
hi. And I thought that was
Yeah,
really interesting.
almost like that kind of like
Yeah.
in the sense where like you could put your own little like just uh, disclosure statement there, or just have it every time you have to ride with someone, like you'll see it on
Yeah.
their profile kind of thing, so
Yeah, most definitely. If they can do that for hearing impairment for my driver, who
right.
was he was talking to me just fine. Like I didn't like have to like
Mm-hmm.
raise my voice. At first I started talking like a little bit louder because he was talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. But it was still very interesting
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Yeah.
Gabby?
Yeah, I was first of all, Lindsay, thank you for sharing, and those are great ideas. I was in Brazil for extended period of time, and they have very different disability laws, I guess. It's much than, I guess, sort of there's less stigma around disabilities actually. Um, and that I realized that that is I mean, there isn't a space for communication disorders like stuttering, but there are, like, I would get notification on Uber that Portuguese was not my driver's first language, or they had a hearing impairment, or things like that. I realized, and that stuff is really important. And I do think it's probably because people leave bad ratings or something. So that's probably why they do that. But yeah, I mean, that's just a really good and really good idea. And yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to share.
I think this is a beautiful segue into our next little set of slides. We have the NSA Disclosure Card. Ooh, sparkle, sparkle. I first got the Stuttering Foundation this disclosure card. There's a few of them, which was probably when I was back in high school. And I haven't had to use it since. I actually got pulled over once and I like couldn't find it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like really stressed. But the NSA has one now, so that is very cool. We are actually going to try to hand some out at the conference. So 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 be on the lookout for that. But there is the second one, the one in the middle, the driver with this driver has special needs. Yeah. Um, and I kind of wanted people's feedback on this because I don't know if I would feel entirely like comfortable with this solely because be because it infers kind of like other things. Um, when I personally work with people with Down a syndrome, autism, and I have since I've been a freshman in high school. But I think that a lot of things come to people's minds when using these kinds of terms. Um, and being so open-ended with like the options, like just reading it when someone hands it to you, even if it's not checked off, I think can infer a lot of of things to someone that I don't know. I don't know what they have been through. I don't know their mindset on these things. So I just wanted to there's a slide that asks like how do you all feel about this? Would you want one of these cards? Um 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 yeah. Uh Lindsay.
I have a card like that, but I feel like how that one is worded, what you were just saying, reading from, I feel like the wording on it could be changed around a little bit because I feel like it's like like with the term it's special needs, I feel like that's very a very ableist term, and I feel like neurodivergent would be better, and then implying like what kind of um um like what kind of neurotype. So like for us, um stuttering is neurophysiological, so I feel like that, like it should be put said that way instead of special needs, because I feel like that's like we're not like special people. We're just your average people who just, are different.
Most
So.
definitely. I definitely agree with you on that. Yeah, there were I think it said like autism is one of the options to check off. I think that there's just something about like the drive like may have communication challenges, may have dementia symptoms, is on the autism spectrum, drivers verbal, nonverbal. um I think that those types of things that might get placed onto you without that intentionally happening.
Mhm.
So I definitely, but I also thought that it was interesting that this was, I think this one was like provided by like the police department. So
Yeah, sure.
I'm like this is like, okay, like the police department is doing this, is like a step in the right direction, but like maybe not the steps. Maybe we just gotta like change the footwork a little bit, like, um, yeah.
So
Jeremiah.
I,
Oh, sorry, Julie.
go ahead,
I just saw
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah had his hand up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremiah. Yeah, I think that the card is nice though, but then like also, I feel like if like I feel like if there was like boxes like on the wise bag, I'm a person that's said it was like a box may be like my words, my slur. Another box might be I may repeat myself, or like the other one, like just like for example why. So I think that might help like each person who stutters, because as we all see and just know that nobody stutters like the same way. So I think just like having like those boxes may help saying, hey, I'm a person who stutter where my words, my slur, or I might repeat myself, or I might whichever of the other ones too, just like a because I've got the other two though, but just yeah. So yeah, I think that would be very helpful for like just for the community. Oh, okay, this person's not drunk, or okay, this person's not nervous when they talk to the mortgage company or talk to the judge, or the words just my slur, or they might have to repeat themselves twice. So yeah. Oh, and hello everybody. Also, I am on the DI committee as well. I just want to put that out there. Hi.
Yeah, I definitely agree with uh what you were saying, Jeremiah. I like that the NSA cards and the Stuttering Foundation cards like actually like put some facts about the about stuttering and communication disorders as a whole. Like, stuttering is not caused by nervousness, but nervousness can, exacerbate it. And to what Bob was saying about like the concept of needing a card, is I understand that as well. I think it's just like something, well, not necessarily something extra even, but like it's something that they can read before they can make assumptions, and I don't even have a chance to say what I need to say about trying to explain this to them. Like, how long is it going to take me to explain? Because it's probably going to take a minute. And I don't know what assumptions, what ideas they're going to come up with before then. And especially someone like me, I close my eyes a lot when I stutter. I'll look down, um, and like move my head in like weird positions. Um, Arnetta.
Yeah, Ashley, just to follow along with what you were saying just now, but I want to say whether I would carry a card, I don't know. I guess I would like to have one just to have one, but I kind of think the card may not be a bad idea, though. I mean, especially because we all don't stutter the same. And I know people who can really have some severe blocking and a person not familiar with stuttering and the secondary characteristics that go along with that, it would be great to me, you know, to have a card to kind of hand to someone just to kind of get an explanation out there, now whether that's going to help or not, but at least is kind of helpful. And, so yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I feel like the woman who was detained at the airport, she might just wish that she just, had it on her in her bag, just in case, like if I'm lying about it, why would I have a card in my backpack saying that I stutter? Like, does that make sense? No, no, it doesn't. Um, Bob?
Hi, I've got that kind of mind that can go almost anywhere. Um, but I just had a thought. Cards become widespread. I picture a Dave Chappelle skit, and and so that and and so that in the skit, Dave is going to have a card that says I'm black. That does not mean I'm a thief. That does not mean that I'm on drugs, and it does not mean that I have a gun. If you have any questions, please ask. Please ask respectfully, and I'll answer. I just a crazy thought there.
Thank you. I've actually done a customized card for someone that I worked with who had autism and stuttering. And we designed it with just exactly what she wanted it to say, and printed it out and folded it and laminated it. So, you can always make it just what you need.
I think we can have Dana say something, and then we're gonna ask for you all to answer this question. Go ahead, Dana.
I was just thinking about the idea of carrying a card I can see where it can be distasteful, but in the situation where you may not be able to speak for yourself, and the medical people are going through your belongings or whatever, it might not be a bad thing to have just in those circumstances. So when you can speak, they can kind of gear up for what to expect. It's kind of almost like I know there's cards some people could carry stating what religion they are in case they can't speak for themselves, and again, they need that kind of care. It was just the thought.
Bill, did you have something pertaining to our last slide here, or go ahead?
Yes.
Okay.
So we talk about education, and I think it would be a good idea to have a telephone number or a website to the NSA so that and I'm talking specifically about law enforcement or people of authority, so that we can further educate them and what it's all about, and maybe help them institute a program within their department. So it's all about awareness.
Most definitely. I feel like that advocacy would come from mainly officers who don't stutter. We were kind of talking about this topic while, coming up with this workshop. Just about how we could implement this into our local police departments, starting there and branching out. Um, I I I think it would even be helpful to have them be a fly on the wall in this virtual room. I I I
Absolutely.
I think it's just like the little start and just spreading not
Yes.
knowledge between people.
And
Excellent.
I think, oh yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Oh, just excellent. I'm just saying that is an excellent
Oh,
idea. As a paramedic, I acted as, someone of authority, that we could do certain things when we arrived on the scene. And so there's all kinds of things you have to think about. But the best way to actually inform officers or people of authority is really have them involved. I once worked or interpreted for the hearing or the non-hearing. We never say hearing impaired, but they would always say, I'm not hearing, so I will write. And so they would use cards all the time. And so, yes, I understand.
yeah. I think it's also just important to note that like law enforcement, they already get training for a lot of for, dealing with individuals who are autistic or, what to do if they're struggling, with their mental health. So it's not, I don't think it's too difficult to add in a little bit on stuttering and communication disorders, especially if people do have negative experiences spanning back decades, like Bob shared. So, so I do think, it's not that big of a change, But anyway, at the conference in Denver, and Pam put the link in the chat, we will be presenting more about this topic. We can also do something virtual as well. People will not be in attendance at the conference, but if there's something that you are wondering, like you want us to look into, you want us to ask around, like now is the time to share. Or if there's something like a project that, there's been so many good ideas in the chat, like Lindsay's idea about Uber, like, these are really good ideas. And so if you have any ideas, we're really open to hearing them.
And I would encourage anybody who gets the inclination to reach out to your local or state law enforcement and just ask. I did that for Tennessee and for Memphis, and I didn't get any response. But it's still worth a try. Just ask, what kind of training do your officers get on communication differences or stuttering, well, stuttering specifically. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who might get responses.
Or if you're bold like me, I've told myself the next time I walk past a police officer, I'm just gonna like ask. It's like, so like, hi, what kind of training do you get on 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 stuttering? Are you aware of people who stutter? So
Yeah.
also that option. I will be doing that the next time I see one, and that will probably happen before July. So, you know, I will keep you guys updated on that.
Maybe the more people who ask, it'll put it in their minds that, oh yeah, maybe that we could include that in it. Like, I don't remember who said it, it wouldn't be that much, or Gabby, I guess, said it wouldn't be that much trouble to add that to training.
So we are almost at time, but Bob, you can be our closing comment.
Oh boy, that is dangerous, but I just had wanted to quip that when I first saw the title of this presentation here, I thought stuttering with authority, T. So,
Oh, what's
It was
that?
a play.
Yeah,
so-
that's good.
That was good. It was a play on words, actually. It was actually one of the board members' idea. We were like stuttering with authority and also with authority figures. So I think that's all for today. Thank you everyone for coming and sharing. It was really interesting. I definitely learned a lot.